Well, folks, I have begun to decipher the mysteries of what will happen to my upload schedule and the amount of time that I will be able to spend on making new videos. You probably cannot tell considering I am wearing a different shirt than I was in the previous video that I recorded, but a couple hours back, I recorded what is currently the first and only episode that I have recorded of the Random Rant subtitle of videos. I don't know if I'm going to do any more, but I did that one earlier. But I have talked about how this video is filling a vacancy that was created in my upload schedule by the movement of the Godzilla Save the Earth Melee project. So welcome one and all to the newest episode of the Idearena series. In the last episode of Idearena, we went over my moveset plan / strategy plan for the Showa version of Mechagodzilla, which I will probably put up as a video card so that you can go watch it. But there will also be, at the end of this video, a card for the Idearena video playlist. So if you feel so inclined, I would highly recommend that you check out that episode. But this episode is going to be devoted to another monster. Which monster would that be? Well, if any of you watched that last video, you know that I asked for viewer input on what I should do this episode on. So I ran a poll on the community tab for my channel. The four choices were thus: King Kong / Kong, because there really is no difference between the original Toho version of King Kong from 1962 and the Monsterverse / legendary iteration of Kong. The Smog Monster from the Toho Godzilla series, Hedorah. The Dream Monster / Kaiju iteration of Ichiro Miki's Bully from All Monsters Attack / Godzilla's Revenge. And of course, Shin Godzilla, the iteration of Godzilla from 2016, and the film of the same name. Now, this is a screenshot from when only 26 people had responded to the poll, and it was pretty clear, even at this early stage, that Kong was probably going to run away with it. Hedorah got 4% at this stage, and Shin Godzilla had 8%, while Gabara had absolutely no support whatsoever, which frankly disappointed me, and I will explain in a second. Then some time passed, and I took another screenshot of the state of the poll. Kong's lead went down slightly, and Hedorah and Shin Godzilla got a little bit more of a bump, and Gabara finally got on the board. And then, as of the most recent screenshot that I have taken of this poll, King Kong / Kong was the clear winner, and pretty much everybody else just kind of stayed in the spot / the ranking in the poll that they were already at. So that means, of course, that we will be talking about Kong / King Kong within the Idearena moveset plan environment today. But before I do that, I do wish to kind of talk about very briefly the kind of ideas that I had for the other monsters, because if for some reason either this video or the Showa Mechagodzilla Idearena episode take off and somehow people want to continue seeing me do these, I just want to give you a kind of taste / hint of what I kind of brewed up for those three monsters. Hedorah is honestly the least interesting one of those three. The best way I can pitch Hedorah to you guys is that Hedorah is a lumbering giant with lingering burn damage effects and ample super armor for many of his moves, such that Hedorah can inflict the lingering burn damage. It's kind of hard to visualize, honestly, and I'm pretty sure there was ample usage of balancing tests would have to affect these moves in that particular write-up, but there's that. I'll talk about Gabara in a second. Shin Godzilla, I feel like would have to play radically different from the other versions of Godzilla as were seen in the Golden Trilogy, also known as as the Atari Pipeworks trilogy of video games. The most interesting thing I can say about my write-up for an idea for Shin Godzilla's moveset is that I took heavy inspiration from the notion presented in the monster manual / in one of the developer comments left under one of my videos for Biolante within Godzilla Save the Earth Melee, where basically Shin Godzilla cannot jump, but due to the magnitude and nature of Shin Godzilla's tail, the jump input for Shin Godzilla basically becomes a sort of stance switch where the tail kind of switches from being just, idle in the animation as Shin Godzilla stands there to a stance where the tail jaw kind of lingers over Shin Godzilla's shoulder. There's also an interesting energy gimmick, but I will not go over that because I want you guys to show me that you are interested in hearing about that. I'm pretty sure I lost some amount of sleep because I was so flush with ideas for that particular write-up. And lastly, I will give you a taste of the ideas I came up with for Gabara. Frankly, I am not surprised in the slightest that Gabara got the least number of votes in this community tab poll, especially considering Godzilla's Revenge is, it's kaiju shitposting on Twitter's favorite movie, but as far as legitimate critical consumption of Godzilla movies is concerned, I get it. But let me pitch the very, very vague idea that I had for Gabara within a 3D Godzilla fighting game that would fall in accordance with the movesets and the properties that I have outlined for Mechagodzilla 1974/1975, as well as the moveset / plan that I am about to outline for Kong/King Kong. I had a eureka moment where I was like, what could you even possibly do with Gabara? And two things crossed my mind, and I will leave you with them. Firstly, I thought Batsu Ichimonji from Capcom's fighting game Rival Schools, because I played a lot of Tatsunoko vs. Capcom Ultimate All-Stars back on the Wii, and Batsu has a lot of electrical flourishes in many of his attacks. The second thing I thought of for a potential moveset / game plan for Gabara was the Space Stone and its Reality Storm within Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. I'm just saying, I think I cooked. Not just like a normal meal, but like a grand meal, as far as my ideas for Gabara are concerned. But let me finally get around to talking about Kong/King Kong. Unlike Showa Mechagodzilla, this is a character that I do not personally anticipate will ever make it into any Godzilla fighting game, 3D or otherwise. With the existence of the MonsterVerse, I guess the chances were elevated somewhat, but I think in general, we are definitely not seeing the version of King Kong that fought Godzilla originally in 1962's King Kong vs. Godzilla, just because of the legal nightmare and the rights costs for King Kong as far as the universal version of the character goes. At the same time, however, I'm not even so sure we'll ever see the legendary / MonsterVerse version of Kong in a 3D Godzilla fighting game, and that's mostly because I feel like Toho has just absolutely given up on actual decent Godzilla fighting games. As we shall see with future episodes of the Idearena series that I recorded before even the last episode that are not coming out until the new year, I personally do not anticipate that we will be getting anything other than cheap mobile ports and advertisement crossovers with other video games for the broader Godzilla franchise, but also just for kaiju in general. So I thought coming up with a kind of dream idea for what I would like to see in a King Kong / Kong moveset within a spiritual successor to the Golden Trilogy of games was in order. And just before I get into the moveset, I just want to make it very clear here. I am primarily a Godzilla head. My godfather would always ask me questions about who I thought would win in a fight between King Kong and Godzilla when I was a child, explicitly because he knew that I would say Godzilla and he would obviously push back and say King Kong just to get a rise out of me and to get me talking. That being said, I am a 27-year-old man as of the time of recording this video. I understand the significance of King Kong and I can respect the character, but even as an adult, I am not particularly fond of Kong, and it was extremely cathartic when Godzilla won the rematch in Godzilla vs. Kong 2021 in the Monsterverse. So before I started coming up with the moveset, I was like, how can I possibly make this enjoyable? What would you even be able to do to motivate me, of all people, towards playing Kong in a 3D Godzilla fighting game when there are characters far more interesting that I could be playing? And it took a few days, but personally think I ended up with something that I'm rather proud of, and this video will probably be rather sizable in duration as a result. Before I do that though, I am going to go get some Sunny D because it is warm in here and I am becoming parched with how much I am talking. Wait a minute, forgot there was one other thing I wanted to do before I kicked off the video. Back towards closer when I started doing videos for YouTube, I often like to show off figures and models that I had of various monsters. And I can say for sure that I bought this figure for this video before I even made the community tab poll for this video. I bought the new Empire action figure for Kong, and I am going to open it while recording this video. I'm not going to destroy the box though, so I am going to try to do my best to surgically remove pieces of this packaging such that I can get Kong free from the capture cables that contain him, because I would like to save this box just for some weird collector's instinct. I know it's like sacrilegious among toy collectors to open the boxes for things, so I am being gracious enough not to show you what is happening. And I have done it. Kong is free. Never in my life did I think that I would purchase and show off a Kong related figure. Hold, Kong versus minus Goji. Man, I really need to reorganize my office desk. Anyway, so the moveset plan. King Kong. As you can see, the image that I have for King Kong here is the 1962 iteration of the character. But as with the last video, I think that the Godzilla Save the Earth Melee methodology of giving characters a plethora of alternate skins is the way that 3D Godzilla fighting games should go in the future. I will not explain that any further. I've talked about that at length. I'm not going to go over that list here, much like I did with the last video, because the ending of this plan has all of those skins outlined, so stick around for that. Okay, I state here, this write-up refers to Kong's battle axe from the legendary Monsterverse as the Atomic Axe. I do that because A, it is alliterative, and B, Kong's battle axe I think is literally its official title right now. And to me, that's just hopelessly generic. I go on to say, similarly, all distinction between King Kong and Kong from the Monsterverse is ignored for the sake of simplicity, as could be apparent. I will refer to Kong simply as Kong, and I'm just going to assume that you know what I'm talking about. As I say at the end of that, they all mean the same thing. Big monkey. Monkey? Okay, here's what makes King Kong very different from Showa Mechagodzilla, as I covered in the last episode. King Kong does not gain energy as per the standard stamina energy system, and instead has an energy recharge battery system akin to, yet different from, the Heisei Mogera in the vanilla version of Godzilla Save the Earth. How does that work, you may ask? Well, let me continue. When Kong's energy meter is fully charged, Kong enters the charged state, which you can see I colored in blue in the text, just to give it some distinction. He can use moves with no concern for their energy costs while in this state, including his weapon and tap weapon moves. The charged state only lasts for a limited time, though the exact duration would need to be adjusted and determined through playtesting. This video will not be out for a while, but I would highly recommend that you check it out when it does come out in a few months. I am going to be covering the roster of the Godzilla fan game, Godzilla Daikaiju Battle Royale, and this energy system that I came up with for Kong here is not entirely my own idea because King Kong has a similar supercharged state gimmick in Daikaiju Battle Royale. I merely adapted it and kind of fleshed it out within this kind of dream 3D fighting game context. While in a charged state, electricity particle effect flourishes are added to some of Kong's moves. This is meant to help indicate to the player that Kong's moves are all slightly amped to varying degrees, including but not limited to damage, knockback, hit stun duration, frame advantage, or otherwise. Given that this is just a plan that I wrote up in Microsoft Word based on the creative energies in my own cranium, there's no way for me to actively test how this Kong would play in the hypothetical game in question, so it sounds kind of generic, and that is for that reason. Okay, here is something that I added to this kind of gimmick playstyle for Kong that initially I included merely for the reference and just to make the gameplay gimmick not the only thing about Kong that was interesting, but over time it actually developed into something that I think actually makes perfect sense when combined with other aspects of the character. The Atomic Axe, which is, spoiler alert, Kong's primary ability, L2, R2, right trigger, left trigger, glows brighter while Kong is in the charged state. While uncharged, the Atomic Axe enables the player to block energy attacks with either the normal press triangle or the low press L2 blocks, and gains a small amount of energy for the trouble. The Atomic Axe glows while the energy gain is occurring in order to give the player feedback, in addition to the appearance of energy cells on the energy/stamina bar in the HUD. There are probably a fair number of questions left with regards to the Atomic Axe. We will get to that. Once I get to the primary ability for Kong, we'll go over it again, so just tuck it into your back pocket. I am going to try to avoid saying this next thing over and over and over in this video. If you were to create Kong within such a project as Godzilla Save the Earth Melee, I imagine this is probably the part of this plan that would not be technically achievable through that project. This is what I would do for a hypothetical new Godzilla 3D fighting game. Nonetheless, it was designed to get as close to achievable as possible, but I thought it was worth noting before we really got into things. And then I have two more notes before we get into the moveset itself. Unfortunately, because Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee and Godzilla Save the Earth, as well as Godzilla Unleashed after them, permit unorthodox body plans and body types and skeleton structures for the various playable fighters slash kaiju, many of the kind of iconic moments seen in the Godzilla films between Godzilla and Kong cannot, I feel, be straightforwardly adapted into moves in Kong's moveset here. Most of this is due to the very wrestling-esque nature of many of those iconic moments. In general, I just think a lot of the interactions between Godzilla and Kong are so hyper-specific to a fight between them specifically that if you make a moveset for Kong within a 3D fighting game, you kind of can't really adapt many of those iconic moments. It is rather unfortunate because, I mean, those moments are iconic for very good reasons, but sacrifices have to be made. In general, Kong's moveset here is meant to emphasize the various tactical capabilities Kong has access to. In short, his moveset is about versatility. Hypothetically, competitive players for this imaginary game could kind of sort themselves into various methodologies of play of Kong. As I mentioned here, there could be versions of Kong that do not even use the atomic axe, but there also could be play styles for this character that use the atomic axe as intended by my write-up here. Okay, we have covered all of the basics of Kong. Now on to the individual moves. Intro, the 8th wonder of the world.
The 8th wonder of the world and the word when I ride. If you think you're mine, can't compete with mine.
Kong descends to the ground surrounded by large yellow balloons, which detach as Kong roars and smacks his left and right pectoral muscles once each while roaring, as is typical. I note here specifically that if you are using one of the skins for Kong that is derived from the MonsterVerse versions of the character, the animation for Kong roaring here is very much similar to the first roar we see on screen in Kong Skull Island. Obviously, I'm thinking that the camera is going to be stationary during this intro, much as is the case in Destroy All Monsters Melee, Save the Earth, and Unleashed. But I guess hypothetically, if the camera moves during the intro animations in this hypothetical game, I guess you could do the sort of 360 kind of move like in Skull Island. Then it gets boring for a second. Jab 1 and Jab 2 are both jabs. As I note here, I feel like jab 1 should be a kind of lower body jab. I'm kind of thinking of this like boxers. Like, I used to play Rocky Legends on the PlayStation 2 a lot, so I'm thinking kind of a left lower body ab punch, kind of. And jab 2 is a right-handed face / upper body jab, you know, kind of like this. So I guess a 1-2 version of it would be this. Then the jab finisher move is identical to jab forward, which is carrier hook, which in short basically is an attack inspired by the kind of big punch that Kong lands on Godzilla during their first fight on the aircraft carrier in Godzilla vs. Kong 2021. Jab back is Kong hammer, which is just a double hammer fist attack, much like the back punch moves for Godzilla 90s and Mechagodzilla 2 in Godzilla Save the Earth. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Jab up is spinning Kong, which is a forward advancing spinning clothesline roughly akin to a slowed down single rotation of Donkey Kong's signature up special move in the Super Smash Bros. Series. So I guess in a way it would look like this, kind of, except obviously Kong is taking a step or so forward as he does it. And then jab down is uppercut, which, I mean, a lot of monsters had uppercuts in Destroy All Monsters Melee and Save the Earth. Then for kick 1 and 2, I just note that kick 1 is a left leg kick and kick 2 is a right leg kick, but the exact animations for those moves are pragmatically irrelevant. They could look any number of ways. They're basic kicks. And the kick finisher move is identical to kick back, donkey kick, which we will go over in a second, but I just have to reiterate. Destroy All Monsters Melee and Save the Earth did not have kick finishing attacks. That was a feature that was added in Godzilla Save the Earth Melee, the mod for Godzilla Save the Earth. As I have said before, I think that was a good move, and thus it is included here as well. So we're gonna skip over kick forward, and kick back is donkey kick, which is basically exactly what it says. Kong turns 180 degrees and does a handstand while kicking towards his opponent with his feet at the same time. This is going to sound really strange because it is, but I compare it to the animation for Marty's kick attack in the Madagascar movie tie-in game, which I played on the PlayStation 2. Obviously, instead of Marty's forelegs, it would be Kong standing on his arms, and instead of Marty's back legs, it's Kong's legs. I guarantee no one thought that they were going to wake up today and watch a video where King Kong would be described as doing a move very similar to Chris Rock's character from Madagascar. Kick forward is a roundhouse kick, which is functionally identical to the equivalent moves found in the 1972 iteration of Gigan and in Mechagodzilla 2 found in Godzilla Save the Earth. Then we have an original move. Kick up is punt kick. Kong hops a short distance forward, landing on his left leg while rearing his right foot back, subsequently performing a kick with his right leg similar in appearance to an American football punt kick. I'll probably play a GIF of what I am kind of imagining this move looking like here. King Kong, I feel like, is an American kaiju. You know, Godzilla is the East and King Kong is the West. So I felt like American football is a sport which is very unique to our country. So giving King Kong a move that is reminiscent of that sport was rather fitting. It's also not the only move that relates to that particular sport. We just haven't gotten to it yet. Kick down is Stomp, which is, as I note here, similar in animation to the Showa iteration of Gigan with regards to his own Stomp move, as seen in Godzilla Save the Earth and in its mod, Godzilla Save the Earth Melee. Okay, now we're on to the Fierce moves, and Fierce 1 and 2 are rather simplistic. Kong performs a shoulder check with his left shoulder, and then a shoulder check with his right shoulder, and both moves are noted as having limited range. Then for the Fierce combo finisher, it is noted as being identical to Fierce Up, which is Headbutt, so we're going to skip over the next two and go to that. Fierce Up is Headbutt. I try to describe these and write these down with regards to and in reference to things that I know. I'm going to try to find footage of this playing out so that I can put it on the screen. I note it as being similar to the appearance of the headbutt one can perform while playing as the character Big Yank Ball in the video game Rocky Legends, which I mentioned a brief moment ago. Well, I don't know about that. Define brief. Basically, Kong rears his head back for a brief moment before clobbering his opponent with a thunderous headbutt. And it is noted that the move gains a pretty flash of electrical particle effect when used whilst in the charged state. Right, next up we have football tackle. As I have said, I think as a markedly Western kaiju that it would make sense to have American football inspired attacks / moves incorporated into Kong's moveset, which is why it is here. As I note in the text here, mechanically I would basically make the football tackle move in Kong's moveset basically be functionally identical to Godzilla 2000's, you know, hunker down, rush forward kind of charge move, with the major distinction being that I would basically make it so that you can extend the charge much like you can in Godzilla Save the Earth Melee as Millennium Godzilla, but in the case of Kong, I would remove the kind of energy cost associated with extending the distance of the dash. And the reasoning that I have in my head for that is that it does not really mesh well with the energy system that I designed for Kong in this plan. And I guess in a certain sense, you could say it would make sense that Kong would not have to expend additional energy for such a physical maneuver, because physical maneuvers and physical dexterity are Kong's entire thing. And I note here that obviously the animation for this attack would be highly reminiscent reminiscent of the kind of football tackle charge in American football. And no, you have not noticed that my attire and mannerisms are completely different from the rest of the video. I definitely did not record this video weeks ago, and I am definitely not recording this particular segment 1 week and 1 day before this video has to be done, and I definitely did not realize while going through one of my numerous editing passes that I forgot a move. That is definitely not the case. Okay, so on to the next move. Up next we have, and I almost scrolled past it, Kong's fierce back is Body Splash, which is an attack nearly identical to the move of the same name performable by Godzilla 90s and Godzilla 1954 via kickback or B and away in Godzilla Unleashed. I've said in the past, the fierce moves within the Golden Trilogy of Godzilla 3D fighting games were basically meant to emphasize the special characteristics of a particular monster, and I feel like Kong needs to utilize his body mass in very forceful ways that other monsters cannot or do not do. Okay, now that I'm done sequence breaking the order of things, the fierce down attack is Seismic Punch. Kong slams his left hand down into the ground with his fist clenched, causing a small 360 degrees in a circle all the way around him shockwave to emanate around from him, similar to the shockwaves that are caused by the nuclear pulse rage moves of Godzilla 2000 and Godzilla 90s within Destroy All Monsters Melee. The move is noted as not doing a whole lot of damage, but it ignores a standing guard, you know, the triangle guard, and it is only blockable through a low block, you know, the kind of crouch block. This move's versatility is noted here as coming from the fact that it pops the opponent a slight distance up into the air. The movement I just did with my hands probably makes it look more impressive than it is in my head, but the purpose of that is to pop the opponent up slightly so that Kong can begin a juggle slash a combo that keeps the opponent in the air and kind of prevents them from fighting back as a result. Juggles are common in fighting games, but it is worth noting that if you do the Seismic Punch while Kong is in the charged state, amplifies the damage and kind of prolongs the pop-up that is initiated through the move. And very importantly, it also adds pretty electric zap effects. Highly technical definitions being used here, people. Okay, now here is the beginnings of my incredibly complex and elaborate explanation for Kong's energy system. So Kong's primary weapon in the uncharged state is Lightning Rod. Kong hunkers down, kneeling on one knee and guarding himself as lightning bolts spontaneously strike him coming down from the sky. Each individual strike replenishes a chunk of the energy slash stamina bar in a process similar to Mogera's own battery recharge ability in Godzilla Save the Earth. But I do note here that each individual lightning blast grants more energy, and Kong must hunker down for a longer time, a prolonged length of time, between each individual lightning blast and corresponding energy meter charge. And it is noteworthy that certain energy-based attacks, of which the only one I can personally think of at this moment is the tap weapon ability, can be used off of a single chunk from the Lightning Rod move. As we discussed previously, once Kong reaches a full energy meter, the energy cells become light blue slash cyan in coloration to indicate that Kong has entered the charged state. If Kong is holding the atomic axe, the animation for the Lightning Rod attack changes slightly to where Kong is like holding the axe up in the air, I guess maybe like this. And as a result of holding the atomic axe while doing the Lightning Rod move, it actually increases the rate of charge. So if Kong is not holding the atomic axe, the Lightning Rod kind of takes a little bit to get going, and it takes a decent amount of time to get to max capacity. But if Kong is holding the atomic axe, then obviously he will be able to reach the charged state faster. And I felt like this was a good move, and I didn't think of it initially, but the Atomic Axe in the Monsterverse is capable of absorbing blasts of Godzilla's atomic breath and using it to increase the damage of landing attacks with the axe. But the basic idea is that it is capable of absorbing atomic energy, right? So having it be that the Atomic Axe can act as a lightning rod to absorb electrical energy from the sky is not founded in the movie explicitly, but I feel like there's enough of a connection there that you can reasonably make that jump. The Golden Trilogy did stuff like that, where certain creative liberties were taken in the pursuit of entertainment and fun and gameplay cohesion, and this is kind of an example of that, where yes, technically Kong having electrical powers in King Kong vs. Godzilla 1962 was not present in any form in Godzilla vs. Kong 2021, but I think it is unnecessary to try and make two separate playable versions of Kong that both focus solely on those individual aspects, when you can really, as I explained just now, can mesh them together.
Mesh together. Now,
it is noted here, even though we haven't gotten to the Atomic Axe, that Kong's physical attack arsenal is limited while he is holding the Atomic Axe, so being in the charged state while holding the Atomic Axe is probably just about increasing your damage output and reducing the lag / increasing the frame advantage of the kind of like basic battering weapon swing attack. But the charged state is not connected to the Atomic Axe, so hypothetically you could just cock the axe at the opponent and just go into a more physical hand-to-hand combat strategy once you have abused the Atomic Axe and its ability to increase the recharge rate of Kong's energy. The weapon attack does change though once you reach the charged state. It becomes Lightning Clap. Similar to the Hulk in the Incredible Hulk 2008 movie, doing his own Sonic Clap, or the analogous move that basically inspired that attack in the movie from the Incredible Hulk Ultimate Destruction video game. Kong claps his hands together with tremendous force, inciting the expulsion of a powerful single stroke of lightning from his now clasped together hands. So Kong does this, and it basically causes a blast of lightning to come out of his hands. It would be similar to Jet Jaguar's weapon from Godzilla Save the Earth, but it would have significantly more force behind it, you know? Like I said, I compare it to the Hulk, so just imagine the Hulk doing it and the kind of powerful boom that it makes. That's basically what it would be like for Kong. And I mean, you can basically compare it to the Thunder before, or a lightning stroke. Okay, then for the tap weapon Uncharged, we have Electron Softball, which is basically Kong generates like a small grenade of...
keep firing! Don't let up! Grenade!
electrical current energy and basically lobs it softball style. And I'm not going to read the whole thing verbatim, but basically you can, nudge the analog stick either away from the opponent or towards the opponent. And if you tilt the stick away from the opponent, Kong basically does an almost vertical toss where it kind of goes up really high and then goes down. So he's basically lobbing it right in front of him. It just pops up in the air and goes down. If you don't do that, it's more of a regular arc. But if you tilt the stick toward the opponent, it goes in a far tighter arc, at least vertically, but it goes a lot farther. I don't really know if I'm explaining that well. Maybe I'll pop something up on the screen, I don't know. But it is a grenade, I note that here, and not a lot. Oh, wait a minute. The short hook is for the stick towards the opponent, whereas if you do stick away from the opponent, it basically explodes almost as soon as it hits the ground because it has been up in the air and cooking in the air for some number of instances of time. You know, it probably would have behooved me to scroll down a little bit because I did not realize that the explanation went onto the next page. So if you wish to read the exact details of the explanation, this would probably be better to pay attention to than to what I am saying. If Kong is in the charge state when he does the weapon tap, it turns into the Electron Fastball, where Kong basically goes like this, and he basically just fastball throws the Electron grenade directly at the opponent to hit them more directly. Kind of like a Dragon Ball Z Ki Energy Blast almost. Oh, okay, so this is a fun one. So for the secondary ability, accessible through tapping the left bumper and the right bumper, L1 and R1, you get the Farolacton Fastball. So let me explain really briefly. In Destroy All Monsters Melee and in Save the Earth, pressing both bumpers at the same time did not give you a special ability, but they added that in Godzilla Save the Earth Melee, and I think that was an ingenious move, so I included such a move here. And Farolacton Fastball might seem a bit strange, so let me explain. Farolacton was the juice that they made from the Faro Island berries in King Kong vs. Godzilla 1962 that caused King Kong to fall asleep. So the idea behind this move is that Kong basically produces a clump of glowing, energized Faro Island berries and basically just tosses them at the opponent, and if they hit the opponent, they explode in a kind of orange purple haze of smoke, and that causes them to enter the kind of like stunned animation, dizzy animation. And you can read the explanation as I have it there, but basically the amount of time that the stun lasts is enough for Kong to activate the primary ability, which you can see there, which is the atomic axe that we have mentioned at several points. But I guess hypothetically it could also be used for other purposes, but I was trying to tie in the various aspects of Kong's versatility in his game plan. Also, I don't have it written here, and I may be completely wrong, but feel like red, orange / maroon smoke was in Kong Skull Island. I don't have any sources to back that up.
Nice argument, Senator. Why don't you back it up with a source?
My source is that I made it up.
Feel like it's the case. Okay, we have finally gotten to Kong's Atomic Axe, which is his primary ability, which is both triggers or L2 and R2. Kong basically thrusts both of his hands into the ground underneath his feet and pulls out the Atomic Axe, as was seen in Godzilla vs. Kong 2021. It operates on the same basic principles as many of the battering weapons in Godzilla Save the Earth, which I did do an entire video on a long time ago within the context of Godzilla Save the Earth Melee that I ended up grandfathering into the Idearena franchise series, whatever you'll call it. We've covered most of the stuff about the Atomic Axe across the rest of Kong's moveset, but I note here that no other playable characters / kaiju would be by default capable of picking up and wielding the Atomic Axe, because I would basically have it disappear in a kind of flash of blue energy if it at any point is out of Kong's grasp, either because it is dropped by him or he throws it. Hypothetically, the only way that other monsters would be able to use the Atomic Axe for attacks would be if you hack the game or in some way were able to access a debug mode. Otherwise, no one else is able to use Kong's Atomic Axe. Oh, man, talking this long really takes it out of me. Now for the jump attacks. Kong's jump punch is Jump Hammer, which is similar to Godzilla 2000's jump punch attack in Godzilla Save the Earth Melee. Showa Mechagodzilla had the same attack, but with a slightly different animation. I just think it's a good move, and if it works for Godzilla, I think this one works for Kong, so. Jump Kick is named Jump Kick. It's similar in appearance to Bowser's back aerial in Super Smash Bros. 4 and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, although obviously without Kong looking back during the attack, because Bowser looks back during the attack in Smash 4 and in Ultimate because the move is a back aerial, but this obviously is essentially a forward aerial. Kong is looking forward as he's doing it, so there is no need for him to look back. Jump Fierce is Drop Smash, which is pretty much the same as Kong's back punch move. I don't know why I named it Jab Back. It's late. My brain isn't firing on all cylinders right now. The only difference between it and the normal grounded attack would be that maybe it would like kind of thrust slash snap Kong to the ground faster. The animation does not have as prolonged of an arc, is basically what I was trying to say in that. Then for Kong's kick throw, the square throw in the PlayStation version of Godzilla Save the Earth, and I guess technically PlayStation 2 version of Godzilla Unleashed, it would basically be the same as Orga's kick throw, where Kong basically throws the opponent to the ground and then does like an elbow drop on them. I guess actually it would be like this. I had a fruit roll up in my hands. And I note that if it is done during the charged state, a single stroke of lightning crashes down and lands during the attack, like wackoom. Lightning strikes at the point of the attack. It ain't that complex, although I'm sure editing this video is going to be complex. Then Kong's fierce throw is Defibrillator. Even if he's not in the charged state, Kong basically, while he's hoisting them above his head, he charges them through his fingers with electrical energy. It does more damage in the charged state, and while they are getting zapped, a single stroke of lightning comes down, it hits them if you use the move in the charged state, because the charged state makes every move look prettier, including the Defibrillator move. It is noted that when the move finishes, the opponent pops slightly up and moderately forward to enable Kong to begin a juggle slash a combo. Then for Kong's Getup attack, he basically does either a backflip or a front flip, depending on whether he is prone on his chest or on his back, respectively. You can read the explanation as I wrote it there. All the movesets that I've made in this document have proven to me that Getup attacks are some of the most difficult to come up with. It's such a minute part of a character's moveset in these games that it ironically makes it kind of difficult to come up with them. Okay, now for the Rage move. Kong pulls out the Atomic Axe out of nowhere, basically. It basically just materializes as he's doing the animation, and he like holds it up and roars. I don't have it written here, I don't think, but I would imagine the Atomic Axe is getting like struck by lightning while he's roaring, and then Kong brings the hammer down, slamming the ground with the Atomic Axe, causing a massive explosion of electrical energy. And I guess it's fitting that I'm wearing a Marvel shirt while doing this video, because I compare it to when Thor brings the hammer down during the Wakanda fight in Avengers Infinity War. I kind of turned Kong into Thor, kind of, in this moveset. I don't really know if anyone's gonna like that, but I wanted to combine the Atomic Axe with the 1962 King Kong having electrical abilities, and I don't know, it just felt like it made sense. Like I said, I'm not really a Kong super fan, so that was how I was able to turn Kong into a cool character in my own head. Hopefully other people like it. Then we have 3 taunts for Kong. Again, in Destroy All Monsters Melee and Save the Earth, there was only 1 taunt, but Godzilla Save the Earth Melee added the possibility of using 3 taunts, so I came up with 3. Taunt 1 is Kong Intimidation, which is, you know, the iconic King Kong bop, bop, bada, bada, bop. I'll probably put a clip in here. It would be weird not to have that as his first taunt. It's iconic. I hate it when people overuse that word, and I do not like when people overuse the word iconic, but I think it's appropriate here. Also, I love the Simple Plan song Iconic.
I'm gonna be iconic.
Anyway, moving on. Taunt 2 is Second Wind. Kong pops his shoulder back into place and growls, reminiscent of a similar moment in Godzilla vs. Kong, which I personally always thought was really cool. I feel like it was in one of the trailers too, I don't know. And for the last taunt, Taunt 3, Encounter of Legend, Kong kind of puffs out his chest and growls, and he does something very similar to what I'm thinking of in the original King Kong vs. Godzilla, when King Kong and Godzilla kind of cross paths and fight for the first time. He kind of walks up to Godzilla and is like, ugh. I couldn't really represent King Kong vs. Godzilla very much in the moveset aside from the electrical stuff, so I wanted to give him a taunt that was reminiscent of that movie. Okay, now let's get to the skins. First up, rather self-explanatory, is King Kong vs. Godzilla King Kong. 1962 King Kong. Like I said, I don't really think we're ever going to actually see the 1962 version of King Kong in all of its ugliness recreated in a video game, but aside from a MonsterVerse specific 3D fighting game context, but if we're going with the notion that this is a hypothetical dream 3D fighter that realistically will never happen, I would go with that as the base skin. I personally would be more likely to use the next one, which is 2017 King Kong / 2017 Kong from Kong Skull Island. Personally, out of all the versions of Kong in the MonsterVerse, for me, it's either Skull Island Kong or the next guy, Godzilla vs. Kong Kong. Obviously, the picture here, he has the atomic axe out, but as this moveset plan has kind of outlined, his moveset includes having the axe out and also not having the axe out. For the next guy, we have 2024 Godzilla X Kong, the New Empire Kong, with the Beast Glove, as seen here on the figure. It might be a little bit bizarre to have Kong wearing the Beast Glove and ripping the atomic axe out of the ground, but I feel like Rule of Cool excuses that away. Like, Kong with the Infinity Gauntlet and a blue atomic axe is just a cool image in my head. If someone has done fan art of that, I would like to see that, because that would actually be kind of cool. Immediately following a discussion of how cool Beast Glove Kong with the atomic axe would be, we have 1967 King Kong Escapes Kong, and you know, it's remarkable how ugly the 1962 Kong suit was, so the fact that King Kong Escapes managed to iterate on that ugliness and make it even uglier is impressive, if nothing else. Next, I have Mechani Kong from King Kong Escapes 1967. In 100% honesty, I don't know how much sense this would make, especially considering that fan game that I mentioned, Godzilla Daikaiju Battle Royale, had Kong and Mechani Kong as two separate characters in the roster, but in a 3D fighting game context, I really don't see a point in having Mechani Kong separate from King Kong. Plus, you could probably give Mechani Kong a cool alternate skin for its own atomic axe, and a robot having access to electrical powers is not ridiculous, so I feel like it's just best to minimize things down and have Mechani Kong as a skin for Kong here. After that, we have Green Lantern Kong, which is from Godzilla X Kong vs. the Justice League, which, as of the time of recording this video, I still have not read, but Kong gets a Green Lantern ring in that comic, and again, you could have a green atomic axe instead of the regular blue atomic axe, and maybe instead of light blue electrical particle flourishes, you could have the kind of Green Lantern green energy effects. That would be kind of cool. I didn't think about that until just now, actually. Then, following that, we have the Armored Kong toy, which came out, I believe, with Godzilla X Kong, the New Empire, where Kong gets a bunch of cybernetic upgrades. Obviously, I do not think that those would need to have any sort of gameplay significance. I just like the idea of giving Kong kind of battle armor for a skin, and as you can see in the image, it also reskins the atomic axe to be a little bit different. Kind of cool looking. Then, immediately after that, we have a skin that in my Godzilla Save the Earth Melee Poll Prophecies and Skin Supplications video, I said wouldn't make sense, but I was forgetting something when I made that. And this is a fun fact for anyone who doesn't know. Zuko, as he appears in Godzilla x Kong The New Empire, is technically taller than Kong himself was in Kong Skull Island, which really just makes it kind of ridiculous if you think about it. Like, just imagine replacing Kong from Kong Skull Island and, you know, all the intimidating stuff he does in that movie with, you know, Goofy Zuko. Just food for thought. Then immediately after him is the other son of Kong, Kiko, I don't know how to pronounce it. The albino son of Kong from the movie of the same name. I believe this is fan art that I have here. Really, it's just a recolor. It's not a remodel. So you're basically just taking one of the versions of Kong and making him albino white. I'd probably go with MonsterVerse Kong from 2017 / Kong Skull Island and recolor him to be albino. But hypothetically, you could do that for any number of the various versions of King Kong. After that, we have the 1933 King Kong Universal movie poster version of King Kong. It's probably easier to see right now when I'm putting it up on the screen. Obviously, you would be scaling up this version of Kong to be much bigger than the version of Kong in the movie. But I guess hypothetically, if you included the ability to scale the size of the monsters in the game, maybe you could have a movie accurate sized King Kong. It'd be kind of ridiculous to have a Kong that small fighting, you know, any of the Godzilla monsters, but just a stroke of midnight thought. It literally just ticked over to 12:02 a.m. Then I have the Garoga Gorilla, which I believe appeared in Zone Fighter, one of the various Toho Company Limited Ultraman series knockoffs. This one is just stupid. I don't know if they reused the Kong suit to make the Garoga Gorilla, but I honestly would not be surprised in the slightest if they did. Immediately after the Garoga Gorilla, we have the Robo Yeti, which was in Godzilla the series. I honestly do not remember the episode in which the Robo Yeti appeared. I probably watched it a long time ago when I watched the entire Godzilla the series, but I'm pretty sure the Robo Yeti was meant to be a reference to King Kong because, as you will see here in a second, I also included the Robo Yeti when it is out of its disguise, which, I mean, just look at it. I'm pretty sure it was a reference to Mechanic Kong. And all the same things that I said about Mechanic Kong basically apply to the robotic form of the Robo Yeti. I really don't see a reason to have a robot version of Kong / a robot version of the Robo Yeti be a separate playable character. So you might as well put it here. Next is a completely ridiculous one that, if this was in any way to be realized by an official company, would never actually happen. But if a fan project for something such as Godzilla Save the Earth Melee did it, I have said before, this would make me happy. It would never actually happen, but it would make me happy. The Epic Rap Battles of History version of King Kong, and I've probably included a clip already of the rap battle that shows this off, but I would personally just recommend watching that rap battle because I think it's a really good one.
Go ahead and blow blue, I'ma make you cold blue. I'm an oxygen destroyer, and now you're on too.
They did say in the behind the scenes for that rap battle that they tried to base that battle's version of King Kong off of the 1933 King Kong Universal movie poster version of King Kong that I talked about already.
So I was imagining us making a King Kong that looked a lot like the early posters of the King Kong movie, which is interesting because in the posters of that movie, King Kong doesn't look anything like he does in the movie. This hulking, muscular, savage-looking beast that I thought would be cool in a rap battle.
But I think there's enough of a distinction between the actual poster version and the Epic Rap Battle version to merit including both of them. And then last, I have kind of just a silly one. I have a Donkey Kong recolor / I don't know if it's a remodel. Basically, it would just be King Kong wearing the DK tie. Maybe you could recolor him to be more close close to the color palette of Donkey Kong as seen through the Super Smash Bros. Brawl render of Donkey Kong that I included here. Again, in an official piece of media, this would never happen, but if you were to include King Kong / Kong in a fan-made project, I feel like that would be a funny inclusion. I have been recording for 2 hours, 59 minutes, and 32 seconds as of the moment that I just said that. And if that seems a little bit high, trust me, there were some behind-the-scenes things that I had to do in between certain parts of recording this, so I am exhausted. Hopefully, I did a decent job of explaining my plan. I included all of the text on the screen as I was going through it, so hopefully, even if my verbal explanation suffered, hopefully the actual recording on the screen is legible and understandable. Like I said, I was having a hard time envisioning how you could possibly make Kong interesting in a game such as Destroy All Monsters Melee or Godzilla Save the Earth. But over the days / the week that I conceived of this moveset for Kong, I kind of grew to appreciate it and actually found it rather interesting. And the fact of the matter is, this will probably never get actually adapted into any sort of video game that you can actually play. And I mean, I guess that makes sense considering it was come up with by me, a fan, for the purposes of a thought exercise, but it kind of bums me out because based on what I described in the moveset plan, I would kind of enjoy playing this version of Kong. I don't know if any of you would, but I would. But anyway, that does it for the December 27th iteration / episode of Idearena. I hope you guys stuck through the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. But you guys let me know down in the comments section below where you would like to see me go next with Idearena in terms of monster movesets. As I have said at numerous points in this video and in other videos, and even now as I record this video, I really don't know how my upload schedule is really going to be affected now that I have this new job. Other than I know for a fact that it will probably be dramatically reduced, but I can guarantee that every Tuesday and every Friday from now until April 4th, we'll have a video uploaded at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The only day that I do not currently have a video slated for at the time of recording this video is March 18th, 2025. And that video is supposed to be the 1-year anniversary of the release of my analysis of the March 2024 presentation for Godzilla Save the Earth Melee. I know everything I just said does not necessarily have to do with the Idearena series of videos, but it could. I do not know what I want to record and release on that date. So if there is a particular video idea you wish to see released on that date next year, let it be known in the comment section below. I will probably make a community post of some kind closer to that date, but it will not be the same as the community post that I made for this video, because this video I knew explicitly that I wanted to do an Idearena video. I don't know exactly what kind of video I want to do for that one. So if I make a community tab post for it, it's not going to have a poll necessarily. So it's not going to be, oh, what monster am I going to be doing a video on, guys? It could be anything. With all that being said, thank you all so much for watching. I will probably have poured plenty of blood, sweat, and tears into editing this video considering how long the recording session has taken. So just to make me feel like it was not for naught, I humbly request that you drop a like below and maybe consider subscribing. And if you really want to make me happy, consider taking a trip to my merchandise store, Mount Merch, and getting some merchandise. And who knows, by the time this video actually comes out, I may have added more stuff to the store. I'm constantly thinking of ideas for things to put on the store, despite the fact that no one has bought anything from it yet. So if you wish to support me in any way, do any number of those things. You know, sometimes it feels like I'm just doing this kind of video recording YouTube content thing for the sake of my own ego. So trust me, any sort of sign that people are enjoying the content really goes a long way. And especially with my job, it really helps relieve the stress that I feel schedule on a day-to-day basis. Anyway, I need to get going to bed, and I'm sweating like a pig under this shirt, so I would like to take it off and go to bed. You guys take it easy. I hope you enjoyed, and until next time, guys, I will catch you on the flip side.
If I pop enough of these balloons, I talk funny.